Last week at about 4 a.m., I turned off my phone for the night and went to use the toilet one last time. Because of the angle of a neighbor's outdoor light, it's not unusual to see lights shining through my window. Even early in the morning, due to it being triggered by the motion of something blowing in the wind. When I saw light coming from the window last week, I didn't think anything of it. For a moment, the light was blocked off by something, so I was looking over there. The glass to my bathroom window is frosted and prevents anything being seen clearly without opening it. It was open slightly, but not in the direction of the light. As I looked over at the window, I could see a hand-like shape blocking the light briefly. Not jumping to conclusions, I joked with myself about how creepy it looked. But the hand became more lifelike as the fingers started to move. It was moving over to the open part of the window. For some reason, I was initially more curious than terrified. The light also began to change position with the hands and moved towards the open part. That confirmed it wasn't my neighbor's lights. I moved as slow as the lights and hand did, over to the open section of the window. As we met at the window, I made eye contact with what I can only call a crawler. The light seemed to be coming from its eyes. It was only feet away and had an angry expression with its teeth showing, and was very pale-skinned. It also had an extremely thin build. I began to get very dizzy as I saw it, almost to the point of passing out. As I tried to regain my focus, the creature moved away from the window. Oddly, I never screamed or lunged, I was just confused the entire time. I've never seen anything like that before or since, and I'm right next to a wooded area. There are constant noises out there, but we all assume them to be owls. Now that I think about it, I may go and take a look at night sometimes. People seem to have a lot of luck with similar-looking creatures in woods at night.
I was with a group of friends after a party. It was about 2:30 a.m., and I was ready to go home. A long night of alcohol and hitting on girls for 4.5 hours was good enough for me. I went outside and my friend Shane was supposed to drive me, Connor, and Anthony home. I went out front and noticed his car was missing. Dang, I thought. He took off without us. I was about to call him when I noticed we had all left our cell phones in the car. This was typical Shane, leaving us behind when we got too high. Connor and Anthony both just started walking down the street back to their apartments. I was going to just go back in and call Shane from a friend's cell, but I wasn't getting left behind again. I ran after them. Halfway home, a big 18-wheeler came flying down the street. The driver was definitely a pure country boy, with his greasy brown hair, handlebar mustache, and a cap that said, "God bless America." The man slammed on the brakes when he got next to us and offered a ride. We, being stupid, said sure, and got in the back. I fell asleep until Connor woke me up and said we had to get out. We had no clue where we were, so we just went through the woods, since Anthony said they looked like the ones behind the apartment complex. The deeper we got, the more unusual things turned up. First, a tree was split in half and had carvings of faces on each side of it. Then, we found a sex doll cut in half, with a rifle shoved in its mouth. And finally, a cottage. I didn't think anything of it. I walked right past until we saw that thing. Just beyond the cottage, there was something with long arms. He looked starved, naked, and bare. I freaking booked it to the cottage. I barricaded the door with a couch. My friends ran out of the woods. Lucky them. I thought I may be able to call the police if there was a phone inside. I went to the back of the cottage to find one when I realized the back door was open. The creature darted in the house on all fours. I am scared shitless at this point. I make a beeline for the window and try to jump through. First time nothing happens, so I throw a lamp at it. It breaks, and I leap through it and cut my leg. The cut was bad. I pretty much limped and crawled my way out of the woods. I looked back only once, and I saw it on the porch, watching me. When I turned and kept trying to run, it started screaming. It screamed for about 15 minutes as I frantically crawled out of the woods. I couldn't believe it. I thought it was a dream. I hitched 2 rides, the first one mugging me and shoving me out of the car. When I got home, I got the police. Then I called Shane. However, Anthony and Connor have been missing since. Apparently, the country trucker was also killed. His body turned up in the woods. As for me, I haven't been stable since the attack.
I'm about to tell you a true story. I couldn't tell you how old I was at the time I saw what is known today as a crawler. I grew up in a small town, so I've always been surrounded by cornfields and grain bins. I eventually moved after 5th grade to go to a new school, since my mother got remarried. I figured I would try something new, so I switched school for about a semester. While driving back and forth to my hometown, from my new home in the country, there was not a lot to see. We would see lots of deer, but nothing out of the ordinary. Just a boring trip. But there was this one time that I will never forget. Thinking about it gives me chills to this day. It's one of those things that happens because I have trouble explaining what I saw. I was riding in the passenger seat, in my mom's old Jeep, on our way to Moequa, which is my hometown. I've had ADHD since kindergarten, so I tend to look just about everywhere because I have trouble focusing. Let me say this now. At the time I saw what I am about to describe, I didn't know of crawlers at the time this happened. Anyway, I remember my mom talking to me, but I wasn't paying any attention. I was too busy paying attention to the cornfield we were driving past. At first, everything seemed fine. I saw a couple deer running and I figured it was because we were driving down the road. Still, something didn't seem right. I started to look back at my mom, but quickly did a double take. In the cornfield, I saw a white figure. It had what looked like long arms and legs, running about 100 yards away from the road we were on. It eventually ran into the trees that divided the cornfields. My mom never saw it and I didn't see it again. As I got older, I started to hear about a creepypasta called the rake, from one of my friends. Reading up on the rake, I came across something that seemed very familiar. A picture of the so-called rake made chills run down my spine. They told me that the rake was not real, and that I must have seen a crawler. So I immediately started reading everything I could find on crawlers. I found all the footage that I could. Not to prove that I was right, or anything like that. Since it still affects me, I just want closure.
It was in the fall, near Halloween or just past, I can't remember honestly. We were older. It was Jay, his girlfriend, and her sister. Jay and I were 18 at this time. We were having a bonfire and drinking out in my backyard. It was a normal night, until we started talking about crawlers. We were only trying to spook the girls a little bit. I was a little drunk, so I probably wasn't thinking completely straight. I wanted to impress the girls, so I started yelling. Like taunting an unseen entity, I guess. Screaming things like, "Come on. What are you, a scared ass?" At first, there was no response. Not that I expected one. But then we heard something that terrifies me just remembering it. That screech, that horrifying sound. We were discussing the noise when I noticed Jay's girlfriend. She was just staring past the bonfire, towards the wood line. We all together turned to see what had her attention. And that was the first time we saw it. There wasn't much we could make out, as there were a good amount of bushes and brush blocking it. What we could make out was a rather bulbous head leading down to a scrawny body. We could see that the arms were rather skinny, but not much else. I'm not sure if it was slightly hunched or not, but it was about 7 feet tall. Though we didn't see much, Jay, nor those girls, ever came over after that night. The second time I saw it, I was in my backyard again. I got a much better look at it with the porch lights being on. It had a short body, a set of long, skinny but muscular legs. The toes were almost like what a T-Rex feet would look like, but with an extra rear toe, like a chicken or hawk. The claws on its toes weren't huge, but looked like they could definitely do some damage. I could see ribs, and a spine. It seemed to have the same bone structure as a human. The arms had a huge wingspan. I'd say nearly 16 feet from one hand to the other hand. The hands had huge claws. Each claw was about a foot long, on 3 distinct fingers other than its thumb, which was about 6 inches long. Its arms were skinny, but again you could tell they were muscular and strong. This explains most of its fast movements. It ran with so much speed, I couldn't understood how it moved. When it ran, it used its hands as well as the feet. Like a monkey would be the best way to explain it. However, when it saw me it stood up on its feet and ran away. It sprinted, and was gone so fast. It ran lightly, almost like it could float against gravity. I think that's why I never saw footprints. But then again, I was too scared to even look. Well, those are my sightings. After writing them down, I had a nightmare last night and woke up several times. I always hoped that it was fake. But tragically, I know it isn't.
If you enjoyed this video, please leave a thumbs up and subscribe to help us grow. Thanks for watching.